Recording in progress.
We're going to call the General Committee meeting to order at 7:11 p.m. We apologize. We're about 11 minutes behind this evening. We just had an affordability meeting, and we'll move into General Committee for this evening. The meeting is being held in person and electronically in accordance with the Municipal Act. I would like to welcome back our student mayors, Tola, as well as Sarah, representing École Secondaire Romeo Dallaire and Allendale Heights Public School, which I was at today. Yeah, I was there. I was reading to a grade 2 class with the Rotary Club. It was really nice. The first item on the agenda is the consent agenda. For the consent items, I'll read out the title associated with the recommended motions printed on the agenda. Members of General Committee may ask that an item be held to discuss that matter further. If an item isn't held, the motion is deemed to be approved on consent. No further discussion of the item will take place at General Committee, and the recommended motions will go forward to the next City Council meeting for consideration. So, student mayors, if you have any questions on following along, I'm sure the Deputy Mayor will be able to help you, Sarah, as well as Councillor Nagus will be able to help you here as well. If that's okay, Tola. So the reports of reference, advisory, or special committee is 5.1, report of the Infrastructure and Community Investment Committee. The report dated October 25th, 2023 is to be received. Councillor Hamilton, would you like to provide an update?
Sure, and thank you. And through you, Mayor Nuttall, the Infrastructure and Community Investment Committee did meet on November 15th. There was 2 presentations provided, 101 type presentations concerning the water operations branch and also the wastewater operations. Very informative presentations, in fact. I think as a taxpayer, we sometimes take for granted some of the behind-the-scenes work and services that the city offers. So it was a great presentation highlighting some of the efficiencies and innovations. So just a huge kudos to staff. It was really eye-opening for me. We also received 3 reports from the committees, Arts and Advisory Committee, the Active Transportation and Sustainability Advisory Committee, and Communities in Bloom. And finally, there's 1 recommendation moved forward to tonight for General Committee's consideration, and that's concerning Barrie's Transit New Network and Vision. And that's that the Active Transportation and Sustainability Committee endorses the intake form to be included in the 2024 business plan concerning transit services in the Salem and Hewitt's plan areas. And I think this is just given the population growth in those areas to make sure that we're highlighting a bit of a gap right now with respect to transit services being offered. And that's that.
Thank you, Councillor Hamilton, for the update. The motion is ICI 1, Barrie Transit's new network and vision, as described by Councillor Hamilton. Are we good to move past that? Is that approved on consent? Perfect. We'll now go to 5.2, the report of the Finance and Responsible Governance Committee, dated November 1st, 2023. It is to be received. Seeing no issues, Councillor Harvey, that's you.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. So we met on the 15th of November. There was the 4 committee members present, along with 6 other members of council. First, we received 2 reports. First one was the report of the International Relations Committee, dated October the 3rd, 2023, and the other one was the report of the Investment Board, dated October 17th, 2023. The first motion that we discussed was a request for Barrie Transit to convert its existing continuous trip transfer system to a time-based transfer system. So essentially the motion was requesting an extension from the 75-minute transfer time up to 90 minutes, which obviously it passed and is here for further discussion and approval tonight. There was also a motion for the clerk to have a 1-year review of all advisory committees. And then the third item that we spoke about was a confidential matter in regards to a lease agreement at the Sadlin Arena. And obviously confidential directions were given by committee to staff to move forward with that. And that is my report.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Councillor Kungle?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Nuttall. With respects to that item and the minutes of that meeting,
In alignment to past declarations, while I was not at that meeting, again, want to just identify I won't be motioning on receiving the minutes, as I do have an indirect pecuniary interest related to the tenants at the Southland Arena, as their foundation has given dollars to the charity I work for.
Thank you, Councillor Kungle. Madam Clerk, I believe that the conflict is related to FRG 3 and FRG 4, not the minutes themselves.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. Yes, they are. They would be referred to the two items that you just mentioned.
Perfect. Thank you so much. With regards to FRG 1, that's approved on consent. FRG 2, that's approved on consent. FRG 3, that's approved on consent. FRG 4, that's approved on consent. We'll now move to the report of the Community Safety Committee dated November 8th, 2023. It's to be received. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, Councillor Morales, I believe that you have a summary of the meeting.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. On Wednesday, November 8th, the committee met at 6:30, and the meeting lasted 34 minutes, and I would say for about 30 of those minutes, we talked about the Painswick Park parking lot asphalt. We talked about do non-paved surfaces count as AODA standard? And if they do they count all the time or only if they're not washed out? And where we left it off was that Painswick Park, while a Ward 9/Ward 10/Ward 8 park, it's definitely a citywide park, destination park, and we would await information, which we did get from the GM of infrastructure. And I know there's probably going to be a wholesome discussion on this as well.
Thank you, Councillor Morales, for the update. So you're saying the parking restrictions did not take the 35 minutes?
Correct.
Perfect. So we'll move right into CS1, investigation, design, and reconstruction of the main parking lot in Painswick Park. Councillor Morales?
I'll hold it.
Held by Councillor Morales. Then the parking restrictions on Sherwood Court. Those are approved. We'll now move into staff reports. Councillor Morales, your mic there is. We'll now move into staff reports. DEV 060-21, amendment to the zoning bylaw 582 Essa Road.
Hold, please.
That's been held by Councillor Harvey. We're going to move on to DEV 061-23, the zoning bylaw amendment application 229 Mackay Road West and 980 Veterans Drive in Ward 7. That's approved. Grant application for Skills Development Fund Training Stream Application Guide. That's approved. Sale of shares of the Lake Simcoe Regional Airport. Can someone hold that?
Hold, please.
Perfect. Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Request for exemption from the sign bylaw 2018-029 60 Mapleview Drive, Ward 7 has been deferred to a future meeting. So we'll move past that to LGL 004-23, the confidential potential disposition of land matter, city properties.
Hold, please.
That's held by Councillor Kungle. REC 004-23, the skate rental services agreement circle at the center outdoor rink, Ward 2.
Hold, please.
That's held by the Deputy Mayor. That constitutes all of the matters for the evening, so we're going to jump back to the first one that was held. If I can get my notes straight here. It's CS1, investigation, design, and reconstruction of the main parking lot in Painswick Park. So that's Councilor Morales.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. And 9 years in, and I'm still going to ask, if I refer to a reference committee that is non-debatable, perfect. So I haven't yet decided it. I'm sure that'll come to me in probably 40 seconds or so. I just wanted to hold this item. There was a wholesome discussion that was had, and I know maybe some other members of council want to ask some clarification questions on AODA standards as well. But I just want to reiterate for those that weren't present in the last meeting, this is definitely a citywide park. I think it is very telling the fact that this motion came from an advisory committee, an accessibility and seniors committee. And for full disclosure, I didn't talk to the members of the committee. I didn't direct them to table this or move this. This was something that was brought to their attention by a staffer, and they decided to put it on the agenda. They decided to have a discussion. They decided to move a motion, and they decided to send it up the food chain. So definitely very objective from there. I'll let the Ward 10 councillor go now, because I know she may have some really specific questions, and then after that discussion, I may get your attention again.
Councilor Hamilton.
Thank you, and through your man, I will pipe in just because I've been looking at this parking lot, I feel like, since I've been elected now. While I was running, this was brought to my attention as somewhat of a concern, given that this parking lot is beside a school and is a gravel lot, and because the school doesn't have a kiss and ride program, it's often used for drop-off and pickup as well, and it was a bit of a chaotic situation there because cars just come and park and drop off. There's no lanes, and you've got kids walking through, and anyway, I think, some of these concerns were just escalated upon the completion of Painswick Park being done and becoming a AOADA compliant park, a fully accessible park, and the use of that park has increased substantially. And as Councillor Morales has said, it's really become a citywide park to be used by all. And so since that point, the concerns and complaints have sort of doubled coming in regards to this parking lot. I know a number of us got letters, emails last night and this morning from a few residents as well, highlighting just some of the concerns from a safety and accessibility perspective. I appreciate, Bella, after last week's fulsome conversation during the safety committee, there was questions raised as to whether or not the gravel lot met AODA regulations or not, and also some questions in terms of the accessibility of the park and what paths were available from the sidewalk for people walking as well. So I appreciate the follow-up and the information that was provided. In gravel lots can be deemed AOAD compliant if they are firm ground and non-slip. And I did provide some pictures to council today just showing that, even a week after this lot is graded, there are a significant number of potholes and rivets located throughout the parking lot. So that does not actually meet AODA standards. And I know Bella also pointed out that, best practice is really to pave this lot. I think some of the concerns, just to be totally transparent, are where does this fit in the list of priorities? I think ultimately it would have been great had this, the cost to asphalt this been included in the larger project design, and it wasn't. So we've kind of left now having a lot right next to a fully accessible park, and it's just not fully accessible. I have been there, as I stated last week, with accessibility vans and wheelchairs, and it really is problematic. There's also no direct access from the sidewalk off Ashford to enter the park, so you actually have to cross this gravel lot. So it is an issue and is a concern. I know we're heading into budget right now, and there's no sort of bundle of money that we have to tap into to finish this lot, but I'm raising it because I do believe it is a significant priority. It is a safety concern. It has been raised by many, many residents, not just within Ward 9 and 10, but from all the different wards. They just come to Councillor Morales and I. So putting this forward tonight, I actually don't know if I've had any questions because I think staff has done a tremendous job following up from last week and giving us the answers that we needed, just looking at the accessibility, entry points and exit points of the park, and some of the measures that, again, because construction was just completed, some of the measures I think that staff was still looking at to try to make this, as safe as possible, and temporary measures given that the lot is not paved, and they explained the cost of the lot as well, being in the ballpark of, I think it was $400,000 to $600,000. So I'll leave it at that. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Councillor Hamilton. Councillor Rietman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm inclined to support the motion as it stands, and the reason I do that is that the motion suggests that it be included in the 10-year capital budget, and that if funding is available next year, that we do it. And we can make that decision when we start ranking all the other projects that we have to do. And, you know, I don't have to say it, but certainly Sunnydale Park, that parking lot also is in dire need of paving. So it seems to me that the motion as it is before us covers all of that. And I'm hoping actually that our staff can take a look at, rather than spending the $600,000, is there a solution here that we could do for $10,000 and pave a path or something like that? And that would get us so that it is ODA compliant, or at least it works for people that have disabilities. So that's sort of my thought on this one, and I very much appreciate the work that staff have done since our last meeting at this.
Councillor Hamilton.
If I can just follow up with that, you know, and I appreciate the sentiment, let's find some interim measures here, but at the end of the day, I think this lot needs to be paved, and I worry that if we put in some temporary measures, and I think staff are already looking at options to do that, I don't want this to be set on the back burner. So I do wonder if it makes more sense to refer this, and I know Councillor Morales is probably getting at this, to the Finance and Responsible Governance Committee, which meets next week, to look at how we can find the funds within the 2024 budget, perhaps looking within Ward 9 and Ward 10, and where we could perhaps reallocate funds. So maybe that's the best way to do it, to make sure this gets taken care of right the first time, and we don't delay the completion of this lot any further.
Are there any other questions or comments? Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Nuttall. After the deep discussion that occurred at committee there last week, I took a trip over to see, although I have been there a few times, I really didn't look at it as close as I did on Sunday when I was there. So I do have a few questions for staff. Now, obviously, only the upper half of the parking lot is paved. The lower half isn't. But of the upper area, there's 44 parking spots. 4 of them are Type 1 AOTA certified parking spots, which, just for the viewers, so there's 2 types of parking spots. Type 1 are designed for the wider vehicles that may have a ramp that's coming off the side, so you've got more room for full wheelchair access to be able to offload, whereas a Type 2 is a little bit narrower for those that are using things like canes and walkers and such forth. Now, with the Type 4 spots that are there, is there a reason that they're at the far south end of that upper area opposed to the north end, which would be much closer to the park area, whereas they're right at a path that walks down behind where the first ball diamond and stuff is? So I'm just kind of confused as to why that was chosen as an area for the spots, and also too, why only 4?
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Harvey, I think the 4 was chosen on a typical mix for accessible parking spots. I think we use like typical guidelines in relation to AODA guidelines, and that's how we came up with the number. Could we do more? Absolutely. I think it's, we could do more if we needed to. In terms of why they're there, I think we wanted to place it closer to one of the paths, and we chose the one on the western side. If we were to put more in, we could put some more on the eastern side. I don't think there was a rationale as to why it was put there.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, no, I know it might meet the minimum standards for AOTA, but I think we kind of missed the mark with the volume, especially when we're building a specific fully accessible park where there's going to be an increased volume in traffic that are going to need those accessible parking spots. So I think the first thing that we definitely staff need to look at, whether they need direction through this, I'll leave that alone at this point. But we definitely need to increase the number of accessible spots, especially along that front row, right where the pathways are. And that, I think, will solve most of the issues that have been brought forward as a result of this. Now, it still obviously doesn't resolve getting from the public sidewalk across the gravel area, which, like, I mean, it's not an ideal situation. It might meet the standards, but I know actually Councillor Rietma just mentioned it, that one solution may be a pathway, which is obviously going to be a lot cheaper than paving the whole parking lot. But again, I encourage the two councillors that are bringing this forward to find some funding sources to resolve this if it's that important, because obviously we're getting into budget discussions, and ultimately I think what it'll end up doing is probably reducing some paving elsewhere in the city. And obviously this is important, but also other areas of the city are also important too. So I do support this. It's just a matter of where's the $400,000 to $600,000 going to come from, and obviously it's going to have an impact on another project somewhere through the city.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none before, is this the actual referral motion? Okay, go ahead.
Quick comment before you go, and then just to hear my colleagues on this. Mayor Nuttall, I'm going to paraphrase something you said at last meeting. We have a lot of gravel lots, and we have a lot of situations like this with these really concerning potholes. The difference is this is meant to be a fully accessible park, so we should, ensure that our fully accessible park is truly fully accessible in all its capacity. So I think that's what kind of differentiates this one. I also want to say to my colleagues, I usually don't have trouble saying no to my residents or explaining the logic behind tough decisions we make. I don't have issue with that. I'm having some serious issue talking to mothers, and it's only been mothers that have contacted me, and telling them this is good enough for your kid that has mobility issues. I don't have kids, and I'm not a mother, so it's been really awkward for me, and it's tough saying that when they live this life, and they probably have for a while of their lives. In addition to that, a lot of the families that are really honing in on this are Ward 10 families. So I'm not just like bringing Councillor Hamilton to help me. A lot of the feeder from the school is actually Ward 10 for the elementary school at least. So I think that just to give clarity to my colleagues, that's why you're hearing a lot more from Councillor Hamilton on this, because it's her population per se that is being a little bit more directly affected, even though it affects all of us. So again, there's been many requests like this. Down in Country Club Estates, they've been wanting basketball court for 9 years. They've been doing this, they've been doing that. I've held the line on a lot of items that haven't even made the council chamber, but on this one, it's a unique situation. I love the feedback about trying to find some funding and doing what we can, and I will let you go now.
Thanks, Councillor. I think this is an interesting one for us as a council, actually, because what we're dealing with is both the idea that there's a specific ward or wards, quite frankly, because 9 and 10 have, a lot of the same demographics, a lot of the same issues and concerns. When I represented there, Councillor Prince represented Ward 9. We ended up working together a lot on many of the issues because that's just the way it is over there. At the same time, there's demands all around the city, right? And Sunnydale was one I brought up, and or maybe you brought up, Councillor, and then I brought it up after, stealing it. But it is one that needs a similar piece. And so I think part of the struggles here that we're grappling with is the idea that there's a demand that's current, there's an existing capital plan that says something else, and how do we then navigate it without having an effect on the overall taxation in the city of Barrie, which we're all cognizant of, I know, especially in these times where people are, finding it difficult and struggling. So it's really easy to find ways to spend money, and it's really hard to find ways to save money. When people are coming to me with ideas, I always say to them, and almost everyone on this table probably has heard me say this, is find a way to fund it, and I'm in. Obviously if it's common sense, I'm in. And I think that this is probably one of those scenarios, wasn't contemplated, wasn't, really seen ahead of time. Is it a gap? Sure. Is it affecting people's lives? Yes. And so how do we navigate this and move quickly and swiftly? And I think that the answer is do the work, come back with the solution. And I think that that was brought forward today to me and to others, and obviously to Councillor Harvey as well. I think it's a great idea on how we should deal with these types of items going forward as members of council. If there are special things that you need to see happen in your ward because it is having a mass effect, you need to be able to bring those forward. You need to be able to deal with them, but you need to do it in the context of the greater global team you're on and budget that we live under. So thank you, and I will now relinquish the floor because I believe that the councillor has a referral.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. I'd like to table, we're at General Committee, so I'd like to table on the floor a referral motion for, give me 1 second, for CS1, investigation, design, and reconstruction of the main parking lot in Painswick Park, referral to the next Finance and Good Governance Committee, reference meeting.
So referral motions on the floor. It's non-debatable. Are there any, you can't even ask questions, can we, Madam Clerk? Then, no questions being asked for. We'll call the vote. All those in favor? And it carries. We'll now move on to the next held item, which was Councillor Harvey, DEV 060-21.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Nuttall. I'll put it on the floor as printed, and I do have an amendment. And that would be to add one additional section onto the end of Section 3, Sub D, that after the words "a site plan agreement," to add "including details on the privacy of adjacent residential units due to openings, glazing, and the rooftop amenity space, and if any private trees are removed, replacement trees should be a minimum of 60 millimeter caliper size along the northeast property line adjacent to the existing residential uses." And I can actually email that out to people if they, a little easier to follow.
Well, you type faster than me, Councillor Harvey.
It was a copy and paste.
Would you like to explain?
Sure, yeah, just to put a little bit of context to it, through further discussions with Ms. Banfield and her team involved in this project, and also some discussions with a few of the residents that are directly impacted behind the proposed building. There's been some concerns raised not only at the neighborhood meeting, but also at the public meeting in regards to privacy. And we did see some changes within the what was being presented from the neighborhood meeting to the public meeting when it came to some windows on that east side of the building, which obviously caused some concerns for the residents and their privacy in the backyards. And it's all about protecting as many of the mature trees that are along that side, so that way people can still enjoy their backyards without having to feel that someone's peering over on top of them. So that's essentially what it is. And I know we have had some issues in the past where just through the construction phase that trees get damaged and have to be removed, and this motion will also ensure that there's good-sized trees being replaced if that happens, and obviously staff will have full control over any of this that needs to take place to be able to fulfill this amendment.
Are there any questions or comments from members of council? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment? It carries. And on the main motion as amended, any questions or comments? All those in favor? Councillor Rietma for sure. Had his hand going up quickly. That is approved. And we're going to move to Deputy Mayor Thompson. Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, can we skip that because we got to go to camera for it and then go to this one and then come.
I also asked Councillor Harvey to hold the sale of shares of the regional airport.
I'll put it on the floor as printed and turn it over to you.
Thank you. Mr. CAO, in regards to the sale of the shares to the County of Simcoe, is there a possibility that if the county decides to sell the property, that we can have a first right of refusal to purchase back based on the same calculated purchase price or share price?
To you, Mayor Nuttall. I would offer for General Committee that a right of first refusal was not part of the negotiation up until now, but based on conversations with you late today, I did solicit feedback from the county as to whether they would be at least open to having some sort of avenue should council wish it. They indicated they're open to it. There certainly are some restrictions around it. In fact, County Council has already approved their side of the deal. But I think if it's General Committee's desire, if you give me that direction tonight, we can probably come back with some options in advance of council before it's finalized, if that works for you, Mayor Nuttall.
Yeah, thank you. I think for members of council, I wanted to, and members of committee tonight, sorry, I wanted to make sure that if we're releasing our ownership in it, it's not just then turned over to the private sector at a much higher number. I think that this, I certainly trust the county, but at the same time, you never know when the situation changes in 6 or 12 or 18 months from now. If we have a fail-safe, if you will, in place, then it can't be flipped over at a higher value. And so the question that I think you would ask is, well, how would that happen in that short time period? When I look at it, and I'm neither an appraiser nor a real estate professional, neither am I somebody who runs airports, but the value of that property as an airport is much lower than the value of that property zoned, let's say, industrial out there, and it's surrounded by industrial land. So if there were a point where, the county were to pull the parachute, per se, and then sell the land as just raw land, the value is much, much, much higher than that of an airport. And we would have sold at the value of an airport, and they could potentially sell the value of something else. And I think that to protect our taxpayers and the amount of money we've invested in this annually, as well as to stopgap it, I would ask that somebody move an amendment to add in a first right of refusal clause to the negotiation.
I'm on the board now, Matt.
Oh, you're on the board?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I should know that.
You were testing me.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll put that on the floor as spoken by you.
Madam Clerk, is that,
Yes, thank you.
And I don't have to speak to it.
you wanted to speak to it? Or
No, I said I don't have to speak to it.
Sorry. Would anyone like to speak to it? Okay, then we'll call the vote on the amendment. All those in favor? That carries. And then on the main motion as amended, Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Nuttall. Just wanted to say a few words. I was actually very happy when I saw this on the agenda, to be quite honest with you. I know I was on the record the last time we had to sell our 50% shares, that I personally thought we should have sold everything at that point in time, because obviously we couldn't afford to continue being a partner in this airport because of the massive expansion that was going to be taking place, and that's the reason why we sold that other 50% a few years ago. And I'll be quite honest with you, if you look across the province, there's no municipal airports that are actually making any money. So this is a money pit that I think we're getting rid of, and we're doing the residents some good here. And in the end, it'll actually put just over $1.2 million back into the coffers that'll end up going into our reserves. So I think this is good for both sides, and I do really appreciate the amendment that was proposed by yourself to protect the interests in the city. Thank you.
Councilor Morales.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. One very quick comment to those that missed it. The media asked me at the end of last week for a quote on this, so I'll reiterate it and expand a little bit. To me, this is a realignment of our residents' taxpayer dollars, meaning we realign it for Barrie initiatives or realigns it for themselves. It doesn't mean we don't care about the airport. It doesn't mean it doesn't benefit Barrie as well as Simcoe County, but it allows us to focus our monies locally. They focus theirs, the county, if they choose to, appropriate time focuses on the airport. So we still get the spin-off effects and the economic development effects of investments in the airport, but we can now refocus the monies here. And what excites me, Mayor Nuttall, is this council has a lot of vision and has a lot of plans to do a lot of big things. And this motion, while seemingly small, realigns us and sets us up in a trajectory to be able to be successful in those projects, be successful in that vision that you've laid out and that we're slowly and surely implementing. And I think we're going to be better for it, while still allowing Oral to do their thing in a way that we can all benefit from. So it's a win-win in my eyes.
Thank you, Councillor. And now, Councillor Riepma.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I agree. I think that it's very appropriate for the county to own the airport, and it's very appropriate, I think, for us to sell our shares in it. I just had one question, and maybe that's to Mr. Miller. The motion says that the funds are going to be transferred to the county capital reserve. What do we use that reserve for?
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Riepma. So if you recall, our contributions to the county for their capital program is funded from the city's what we call county capital reserve. As you dive into your budget binders over the coming days, there is a page number in there that will show you that reserve is overcommitted by quite a bit. So these funds would help offset future increases for the taxpayer. If you do approve this motion, it goes into that reserve.
The largest piece of that, Councillor, is the development of affordable housing here in the city of Barrie, which I think our shares 40 some odd million, 50, 45, somewhere in there.
It's significant, and if you may, can I just also say that now those can't be funded from development charges, which puts more pressure on this reserve.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none. On the idea of not being a shareholder in the airport, I think, quite frankly, when the decision was made to go down from 60 to 10, the decision was made for today. Being a 10% partner in something means you're along for the ride and the flight, if you will. And I don't think that that's necessarily where we want to be on this. Secondly, we have another transportation asset, being our railway, and the city owns it. The city operates it. It is good for Barrie. It is better for Innisfil. And so we do our part when it comes to transportation assets in Simcoe County, just even through the rail, let alone what we've done on the airport. And I think it's important to remember we are a very strong player for the greater area, not just within the bounds of the city of Barrie. With that being said, I will call the vote. All those in favor? And it carries.
Separate report.
A separate report has been requested by Councilor Morales, Madam Clerk.
It's recorded, thanks.
Yes, we hit the eject seat. Yes. And pulled the ripcord. Bob, there's the headline. Pulled the ripcord. Deputy Mayor, you held the skate rental.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. I'll put the motion on the floor as printed. Through you to staff. Just wondering where, Mr. Bell, where did this come? Did the company reach out to us, or was it something that we seek?
We had been talking about it for a while. Then this individual company had a discussion with us about doing a test at the Circle at the center.
And I guess it's being new and stuff. Is there anything that we've kind of set out as a measure of success, or is it the willingness for them to continue after the 2-year pilot?
The reason it was set out as a 2-year pilot is we did try this once before back in 2013 and had a terrible winter, so it was deemed to be unsuccessful. So we put in a 2-year pilot just to give it a chance for success in the event that there was inclement weather that, doesn't allow us to maintain the surface as well as we would like to.
And do you think this could be replicated throughout the city at all our facilities, or is it more just of the outdoor rinks where in our rec centers it's normally people who have skates and it's a different caliber of skater?
Yes, there are only 2 outdoor rinks that are maintained using chiller equipment here and at Will Dwyer Park, and Will Dwyer Park is considered a hockey rink as opposed to this one, which is for just social skating, and that's why we thought it was an opportunity at the Circle at the center.
And would there be an opportunity for this company to continue after the pilot and possibly like offering, skate sharpening and stuff, expanding it into some of our other facilities?
If this pilot was successful, we would have to go to market to make sure that, we get the best deal for the city if there are other companies out there willing to provide that service at the Circle at the center. And as far as our indoor rinks go, we are currently, as General Committee knows, looking at alternative uses for our former concessions areas, and skate rental, skate sharpening is one of those opportunities.
Just out of curiosity, I didn't know that there was companies that offered this service and stuff. Is there a variety of companies that do offer this service?
We're not aware of any in this immediate area. This is the only company that has ever approached us about this. We do know that they offer this service at the Innisfil Skate Trail as well.
Perfect, that's all, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Corser.
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Mr. Bell. Just a comment, really, when I saw this, I was really kind of happy about it because we all know that times are tight and kids' skates are expensive. So the opportunity to be able to bring your kid out, and especially if it's not something that you do all the time, it really gives kids an opportunity to enjoy the ice skating without having to put the investment in it as a parent. So I think this is really good going forward. That's all I had to say.
Thank you, Councillor Corser. I have a question related, but definitely not related, and will not facilitate any amendments for this evening, but just on the downtown, the City Hall ice rink and then the waterfront one. Have we ever contemplated adding logos into the actual surfaces to raise money to keep to make them, neutral in terms of cost?
Yes, unfortunately, Mother Nature wreaks havoc with anything that we put into the ice, and I know that from last year, our experience is that we tend to lose about 50% of the ice thickness over the course of the winter, and the logos to be viewed can't be that deep under the ice surface, and so it would cause significant problems if we put them there and they show through the surface. Our machines would destroy them and we'd have to replace them again. So yeah, we have looked at it, and at this time there's no methodology that we're aware of that we could use it for an outdoor rink that's exposed to the sun.
And there you have it. That's why it's not there. Thank you. It was a great answer, though. Yeah. No, if I see an opportunity for money, I'm going to jump on it, but not if it's going to destroy somebody's logo. I think that would be counterproductive. Okay, I'll call the vote on the motion. All those in favor? It carries. We're now going to move on to inquiries. So, Deputy Mayor Thompson, do you have any inquiries this evening?
I do not.
Councillor Kungle, I believe you have an inquiry.
I do. Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. I have two. I'll start with the first one. Through you to CEO Prowse, if I may. So whenever we have holidays, I'm assuming, based on what I've seen by emails, whenever there are fireworks, whether or not they're tied to our bylaw around when you can and can't set off fireworks, they raise questions by residents specific to parameters of our bylaw. So the timelines about which they can be sent off and other aspects. We made changes about 2 years ago, I believe, and then had conversations since where we still get some questions, but I think there was an interest around should we follow suit with other municipalities around further restrictions, and we've seen some of those happening, making sure that we've got some input across the city from residents. And so I was wondering if staff would have an opinion about if it would be possible and not too costly to do a poll tied to the bylaws related to fireworks at a residential level and the whole bylaw in itself. And I'll go from there based on your response.
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Kungle, thank you for the question. And I know it certainly has been topical. And the issue and concerns around fireworks has certainly evolved fairly rapidly over the last, I would say, few years, maybe just going back to COVID. The short answer to your question, Councillor Kungle, is we do have the ability to run what I would say a short poll on our website. The challenge with that is it's not easy for me to say statistically valid. And so it's easy to be weighted or skewed. If council is genuinely interested in trying to get feedback from our residents on this matter or other matters, I would encourage council to give staff that direction. With a small budget, I think $5,000 or $7,000 probably is enough to get a couple of questions put together in a poll. They could be specifically around fireworks, or they could be around council priorities in addition to fireworks, so that you get some additional value around that. I would also encourage, if council has the appetite, they should include in that direction to staff to talk to our neighboring and sister municipalities around what they're doing, what's working and not. And I think lastly, as I think about the issue, there is new technology available that is still relatively in its infancy, but may not be cost prohibitive, which may very soon eliminate the need for fireworks altogether. I don't know how valid that would be, but I think that's something council would also want to consider, should they want to consider an alternative action to the approval of fireworks.
Thank you, I appreciate that, and I'll take that away, but to your points, I'm not sure about other members of council, very interesting pieces. I'm seeing some countries are going soundless fireworks, some are using, be it drones or other lighting initiatives and or with music, and so I think the whole conversation has shifted to about how do we balance environmental cost, but also enjoyment overall, and some things have shifted. So I will take that away and craft a motion. My intention is to bring back a conversation to General Committee and then see how we could at least direct staff to gather some information, but perhaps if we do take a step forward, I'd love to see some type of reasonable approach to gauging the interest of residents across the city.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. And I want to be, always want to be transparent. This is something that is not just showing up this week. Something that Councillor Kungle has brought up much earlier in the year. And members of council, I actually didn't pull the trigger on a poll that I was going to do, which was going to be incorporated in as well. So I think it is worthwhile getting the information. And if you ask my 10-year-old at 1 a.m. on Sunday night if it was worth getting the information, he would tell you yes. And I will leave it at that. Other inquiries?
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall.
Sorry? You have a separate inquiry? Sorry.
Just so I don't lose the floor, if I may, I had a second inquiry of both staff, but also to you, Mayor Nuttall, and so sort of put you on the spot, and you don't have to answer it now, but the conversation that we had with respects to Painswick and budgets and finance committee and other aspects, and then in the previous week where we talked about the budget process and the new mayor powers. So I'll frame it as a question to you, Mayor Nuttall, but then to Mr. Millar, if it sits there too, is maybe it's not that useful of a tool as things will change around who informs the budget and how that gets set, knowing that this is a bit of a different year. But when we think about conversations and building cases and finding money for different things that we feel are important, be it in our wards or to the benefit of the city, I can't help but think of how valuable a decision-making framework would be. Around risk, accessibility, safety, value for money, return on investment, and where that comes into play when we are dealing with all these different demands. And so I'm not sure if, maybe it would be felt to be not valuable because our budget process, I think, will be changing after this year. But in general, knowing that there is an appeal process that's tied in to whatever the mayor chooses and feedback, you know, I'll give it to a comment, but hopefully it's something to consider, is it would be lovely to know that if there are things that are, of course, competing interests, what is the lens that we're taking tied to prioritizing what does and doesn't get funded in a given year, and if there is something tied to a framework that might help better support future decisions and/or decisions as we go forward. So more of a comment, but I wanted to open the floor as a question to say, could you consider a decision-making framework or some type of tool that might help us as we go forward, whether it be this year or in the following years, that may help us to understand how decisions are being made and the framing for those decisions?
So in terms of this year, Mr. Miller, the capital plan, I think, is what you're referring to.
Mm-hmm.
When the capital plan's being brought forward, are the items that were outlined by Councillor Kungle taken into consideration in terms of life cycle, accessibility, all of the other things?
Through you, Mayor Nettle. So yes, on the capital side, the city does have a robust prioritization process that does exactly that, looks at it from a risk perspective, as well as council priorities. And from that, staff do make recommendations that works its way through. I would anticipate that process will still continue as we evolve and go forward. And if you may, this council hasn't had a chance to bless it yet, but every term of council we do, and we plan to do this next year, we do bring an update. We have a financial policy framework that has some guiding principles related to reserve balances and some philosophies on respect for the taxpayer. So right now, staff do follow that when we bring things forward and on our reports, and we would again get this council an opportunity to review those next year. So there is frameworks in place, and there are opportunities, I guess, going forward to tweak them. And as we learn the new process that we're in, you know, we'll be better off to do that next year as well.
Thank you. And realizing it's more of we're in the process now, but it's more, I think, as we go forward, and some of those conversations might have a different forum for how the information's brought back. It would be great if that's something that continues around transparency around how do these things, once decisions come forward, really do align back to that financial framework, but also the lens of safety, risk, return on investment.
Yeah, I think the good news is that council's still the one that ends up approving the budget. Whether it's Mr. Miller who brings forward a budget, or if it's myself who brings forward a budget, it's council that will inevitably end up one way or another approving it, either by doing nothing or by doing something, because both are approvals. So, you know, I think that process, you're talking now 13 months out, and, you know, I'd be hesitant to commit to a set of processes today on that. I have contemplated that in the same way that the budget as a whole is going to Finance Committee, I'd like to see the capital plan go to the Infrastructure Committee, because I think that those are the appropriate places to have these conversations. And I also would like to see a more length of time associated to the budget than we have now, and we extended it out this year, and I know that we made some amendments last week, but overall this is a much more lengthier, transparent process than has ever been incorporated to any budget in the City of Barrie's history, and I think that's a good thing, right? So that's the direction we're on. We're always going to have to kind of check the air and see if we need to do things better or differently, and, you know, make sure that we're living up to our promises on transparency and therefore accountability. Councillor Morales.
Thank you, Mayor Nettle. I think to the earlier question comment, I think the good news of where we are is all members of council have had two councillors share that opinion. And then the other good news is it might be a good opportunity, Councillor Congo, for a future Walk With Me Wednesday to be at the St. John Paul II Elementary School parking lot beside Paineswick Park, because there's nothing more direct than hearing from a mother who, again, will share with their opinions. So I think that there might be an opportunity there. My question is to also Mr. Prowse. Mr. Prowse, regarding the fireworks, which this is an interesting topic. I appreciate you just even putting out there for the media, for people watching, to say that there might be technology coming forward. I'm a fan of technology, whether it be vehicles or fireworks. In the meantime, do you have any approximation? Because you gave a number to like the survey, like there might be 5,000 or so. Do you have out of your pocket maybe a number? I saw a really good post, Mayor Nuttall, on an online group. It was a member of the Barrie Canadian Indian community who basically said, hey, this is an important holiday to us. However, the pictures you guys are posting, people are posting about the parking lots being dirty are unacceptable. We need to step up. And it was a very good post. And also, I believe in his post, and I'm paraphrasing here, he said something that, like, this might be a good opportunity for the city to get involved and run a Diwali controlled, clean, and city-run opportunity. So in my perspective, the way I read that, he kind of almost tried to apologize for his community. And again, if he's watching and I'm misquoting, please let me know. But almost apologize for the bad, still support the importance of the holiday, while maybe even proposing an alternative to then maybe cracking down harder on non-sanctioned ones and moving towards something that is supported the way we support other ones. So to the CAO, again, I hate to put you on the spot, and I don't know if you have a number in your pocket, but has staff considered having a Diwali, a city-run kind of firework show specific? And if so, and if not, or if you have, what would be a ballpark number so we could get a rough idea by even comparing it to other fireworks that we've done from a city-run perspective?
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councilor Morales, I don't believe staff have lent their mind to a specific additional firework. At the risk of putting Mr. Bell on the spot, my recollection was the Canada Day fireworks ran somewhere between 75 and 100,000. Am I close on that, Mr. Bell?
Closer to 80,000 when you include the cost of the fireworks and the barge. The fireworks themselves were about $50,000.
There you go.
Okay, perfect. And that's Canada Day, so maybe there might be a size thing. Just if the discussion's happening, I figured, Mayor Nuttall, I would ask. I also know I extended this offer to Councillor Congo, so I'll extend it to any member of council publicly. If anybody wants to have a conversation with Mayor Patrick Brown out of Brampton, please let me know, and if you don't already have his contact information, I'll connect you as appropriate. And here's why. The City of Brampton did a ban, and I corrected a link that I sent to council, but even with bans, bad behavior still happens. And there's video proof of that, not just anecdotal. I thought it was just anecdotal, and then video proof emerged. So bans sometimes usually don't work, and sometimes it actually incites people to do it worse because they're like, you're banning me and this is important to me. Does the city not get me? And they almost kind of double or triple down. So I think the best person to ask is a person who was behind the ban, which is Mayor Brown, and has experienced both pros and cons, and maybe we can arrive at a better solution based on his experience from there. So that offer is open to any member of council.
Wonderful. Thank you, Councillor Morales. Any other questions in inquiries? Seeing none, we'll move to announcements. Deputy Mayor Thompson?
I have none.
Has no announcements. Any other announcements around the table? Seeing none, I have a few. I have to be honest, it's going to take a few minutes here, so I apologize, but such is the responsibility. I'd like to proclaim November 16th as Pancreatic Cancer Day and November 17th as World Prematurity Day. I'll be hosting a Mayor's Town Hall on November 22nd at 8 p.m. in the Council Chamber to receive public input concerning the city's official plan and the recent modifications provided by the provincial government. To learn more or to register to speak, visit barrie.ca/official plan. The Ministry of Transportation, MTO, continues construction on Essa Road, Highway 400 interchange. The next ramp closure will occur November 20th to 25th at the westbound Essa Road to southbound Highway 400 ramp. For more information, visit barrie.ca/Essa Road and Highway 400 overpass replacement. To kick off the holiday season on Saturday, November 18th, the following is happening in downtown Barrie. At 10 a.m., the Noella Festival starts, featuring entertainment, family programming, and horse-drawn wagon rides. At 5 p.m., the Barrie Chamber of Commerce's Santa Claus Parade, which will run from Lakeshore north of Tiffin Street to Toronto Street, then east on Dunlop Street to Mulcaster. At 5:45, the Noella tree lighting and fireworks will take place, followed by a performance by My Son the Hurricane. The City of Barrie is seeking public feedback for future playground improvements at the East Bayfield Park, 99 Hanmer Street East, and the East View Community Park, 453 Grove Street East. To provide feedback on these projects, please visit buildingbarrie.ca. The next Finance and Responsible Governance Committee and City Council meetings will be held on November 22nd, 2023, followed by our Town Hall with regards to the official plan. The circulation list for November 8th, 2023. Are there any items? Councillor Kunkel.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall, and it's probably just a couple of questions specific to your reference to the East Bayfield and Eastview Park. And if I may redirect, I guess, a question to Ms. Rebecca James Reed. I love the approach to this. As Mayor Nuttall commented, right now, as of November 13th, both those parks opened up into a kind of a digital feedback for residents, and that's open until December the 1st. In that circulation list memo, as always, I believe we kind of do that communication to, I believe, residents, including the schools. So I'll talk about East Bayfield Community Park because it's in the ward, within 300 meters, I believe. But noting that it includes the dome, it is a city facility that's much broader than perhaps the usage of residents in the area. Are we also maximizing our social media, and or are there other ways in which we can complement making sure people don't think if you didn't get a letter for feedback, we still value the feedback and getting this out to maybe a broader audience?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Kunkel. Yes, absolutely. We've put this very broadly out to the community. There's a press release. There's information on our social media. It's on our website. There's things that you'll see in the hallway, our facility monitors, which are also at the rec centers. So we are trying to do a very broad approach to getting the message out too. We want the consultation.
Great, thank you. And I was going to ask about the rec center, so that's perfect. And I guess my comment on that would be just to fellow members, if I could encourage you, if you have a moment, to also put this on your social media and share it, because it is two great city spaces where we've seen new pickleball courts in Mr. Councillor Rietma's ward, as well as a community garden and other aspects tied to playgrounds. So while the scope is about playground improvements around the concepts, materials, and features, it would be great to make sure that that's something we can all share forward in our communications with our wards.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other items related to the November 8th, 2023 circulation list? How about the November 15th, 2023 circulation list? Seeing none, we will now move into closed session to discuss the confidential staff report held during the consent agenda concerning the disposition of, or potential disposition of, land matters, city properties. Can I have a motion to move into closed session? It's moved by Councillor Corser and seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Do I need to vote for that, Madam Clerk? All those in favor moving into closed session? And it carries. We'll now go to Sir Robert Barrie.